Oulton Park in the sunshine, Easter Bank Holiday Monday, and GT cars set to thrillers over two 60-minute races today. It must be the start of a new season of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, the 30th season of British GT, and a packed house here at Oulton Park to enjoy what is set to be a pair of non-stop action racing. The weather's improving by the minute. The atmosphere around the circuit has been buzzing since Friday. I was here for the test sessions on Friday. I've never seen the place so busy on a test weekend after the COVID-affected years have kept a number of people away from racetracks. A lot of them very happy to be back. Look at them, all out there camping and setting themselves up for a day of racing. Many of them, as I say, have been here the whole bank holiday weekend, and they have not missed a wheel turn on the Oulton Park International Circuit. And quite rightly so, because it's one of the most hotly anticipated seasons in British GT history. I made mention that it's the 30th season of racing, but what a grid we have assembled for the championship this season, packed full of talent and potential race winners and championship contenders. And down there in amongst it all, I'm Andy McEwan in the commentary box, but with the, I think, best seat in the house right now is Bryn Lucas. And Bryn, I think you've got my co-commentator with you as well.
Yeah, I do have your co-commentator with right now. When you were talking about talent just then, I thought you were going to throw down to me as talent, and I was going to say thanks very much, Andy, but that didn't happen, nor to you either.
No, I know. Start of a new season though, and look, the sun is shining, Bryn. It's a mega grid, a mega place, this Oulton Park. You know, it's a real driver's circuit. We had a fantastic qualifying session on Saturday afternoon, and it's one of those days that, you know, there's so much to learn. New tyre, some new teams, one or two new driver combinations as well, new car from BMW. Yeah, can't wait, bring it on.
Let's talk tyres for a second, because I've been wandering up and down the pit lane and spoken to a lot of the drivers, and depending on which driver, which team you speak to, they tell you that they like the tyre or they're not quite sure what's going on with the tyre and they can't hook it up. You were here on Saturday for qualifying. Did you get the sense of that at the same time?
Yeah, and the teams are still learning about it as well. I mean, we'll talk tyres during the course of the race, but yeah, it is a different tyre from the past. It's the same tyre for GT3 and GT4, and some cars, and one of them is the Mercedes, is able to really make that tyre work very effectively, very quickly. The Mercedes has always been strong around here. Its one tiny little weakness used to be the old tyre. Well, that problem has now gone, so it's very good for Oulton with all the torque, and it loves this tyre. So the Mercedes, it's not a shoe-in necessarily, but it's certainly looking very, very strong, that's for certain.
It certainly is. Now, last season we kicked things off at Brands Hatch, and that's a pretty tricky circuit. Yeah. But this time it's a different kettle of fish, although you were talking to Jules Gounon on Saturday, and he was saying you really do have to respect Oulton Park, because, you know, it's not a lot of runoff, it's very tight and twisty, and for some of the AMs it could catch them out. But he himself was saying this is a really, really tough place to learn.
Oh, if ever Motorsport Vision, that owns Oulton Park, needs to play any audio or any vision of somebody selling the circuit, Jules Gounon is the man. He's our unofficial Oulton Park ambassador. He was likening it to Bathurst and the Nordschleife, with all the undulation, with the fact that it is an old school circuit, as you say, little runoff. Absolutely love the place. I mean, he's never raced here before. I don't think his father ever raced here. I can't remember him doing, but he took to it like the duck to the proverbial and absolutely blitzed everybody in qualifying.
He certainly did, and I'll tell you what, that team with him and Loggy, they're looking like a formidable partnership in GT3.
Yeah, Ian Loggy has come so close to winning this championship, and he's fed up of coming so close. He wants the Champions Trophy. Jules can't do every race because of other commitments, but it underlines the determination Ian Loggy has to win the championship. Finally, in block capitals red underlined, he's brought in, you know, one of the best drivers out there.
Well, he has, but another driver out there that's sick and tired of coming second, or even worse, is Phil Keane.
Yes.
In the WPI Lamborghini Huracan, and he's out here again, and he's got the same teammate as last year, so they can learn, develop from last season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they started well, if you remember, at Brands, and then something unravelled, and then it rebuilt towards the end of the season. But yeah, they know each other, and they know the car very well, so they should be able to, if you like, carry on from where they left off at the end of last season. But then you get to the new tyre, and we'll have to see how that's going to affect the Lamborghini.
Always comes back to that new tyre, doesn't it? Particularly in a brand new season. Now, we are waiting for a lot of the cars to come onto the grid. I know, David, you're going to do a bit of a run along, aren't you, and do a bit of walk and talk. Ainsley Harriott is also here this weekend. Ainsley Harriott sponsors the Century Harriot's Chariot, I suppose is the best way of describing that. So we will catch up with Ainsley Harriott. But who's your eye on, David? I know it's a horrible thing to say, but in GT3 and GT4, Darren Turner in particular, and that partnership, Topham Turner, it's looking formidable as well.
Yeah, it is, because they were class champions last year, and they did such a good job, and Darren put it on pole position for race 2. Look, this isn't meant to be a cop-out, but in part, once we've survived the first couple of laps, then we can get a bit of a plan. Oulton is a circuit that can bite, and you do need to keep out of trouble, survive the first couple of laps, and then you can make a plan from there. So yeah, ultimately getting 3 laps time.
Look, it's such an exciting time, the start of the first race of a brand new season, and we are going to get down the grid, and we are going to speak to many of the teams and the drivers. But let's head back to Andy and talk about why we're missing one particular car for the Oulton opener.
Yeah, thank you, Bryn. Thank you, David. This is the reason that we will not be seeing the number 91 Century Motorsport BMW. This is the new to the championship BMW M4 GT3. Betty Chen, the first Taiwanese driver in the championship, having this shunt in morning warm-up about an hour and a half ago, coming out of Druids. They'd already lost a lot of running on Saturday after a shunt that they'd had on circuit, and sadly another one has now put paid to their chances of starting, I believe, either of the races here today, which is a great shame, but I guess every cloud and all that, we have enough GT cars to go around. So we're losing 1 or 2, whilst really unfortunate for Century Motorsport, is not going to affect the show that we're going to put on here, because the guys were mentioning it down there on the grid. We've got a near capacity grid entered this season, and we've got 17 GT3 cars, which is the most we've had for quite some time, set to do battle around the Oulton Park circuit in this, the first of 2 60-minute races. Now, those of you familiar with British GT will know how this works. Those who are perhaps tuning in for the first time, welcome along. Hope you're enjoying yourself and as excited as we are for the new season. It has its own set of quirky rules and regulations, which we'll get into once the races start, but the races will see all of the cars shared by 2 drivers. In GT3, there will be a pro and an AM driver sharing the driving duties. That's a little bit different in GT4, where we have lots of silver driver combinations, which we'll get into later on. But it is the AM driver who starts this race. The pro will jump into those GT3 cars for the second half of the race, and then they reverse that for race 2. The pros start that one, and the AMs finish it. And that's all because the grid for race 1 was set by the first qualifying sessions, which were done by the AMs, and the pros qualified for race 2, so it makes sense for them to start where they qualified. Right then, down on the grid, who has David Addison found?
So down here on the grid, Simon Leonard of Redline Racing. Now, if you follow national racing, you will know of Carrera Cup GB, and Simon and Redline Racing have made this habit of winning trophies. And you're standing in front of a Lamborghini badge on your chest. This is like having an affair, isn't it?
No, well, this is mainly customer-driven, this process. Right. So, we got the opportunity, and he chose Lamborghini, so here we are. Yeah, I'm very excited about it.
And different drivers and a different type of racing as well, because it's not just a sprint for 20 minutes or so. This is pit stops, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour races in the mix.
Yes, it is, and we've put a lot of investment into the team to make this all work, and we're quite excited about it really, and we've got some good staff, good lads. We're all quite excited about having a go, and we made it happen. So here we are.
And these are drivers that you've run before, and although they're new to the car, you should be pretty optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, we ran the guys in Cayman Challenge. So it made an obvious, there were teammates before, so it made an obvious, challenge to put them both together in the Lamborghini, and it works well.
Excellent. Simon, good luck. Enjoy your new GT programme. Let's go further back down the grid. I think, finally, Bryn has managed to catch Ainsley Harriott.
Yeah, I am indeed with Ainsley Harriott, the name that is adorning this car here, Harriott's Chariot. Now, Ainsley, you've been associated with this car now for, well, a couple of seasons. Tell us why it is you're here with British GT.
Because to support Chris and the team, we've got Tom, who's a new driver. We're really excited about it. I think the guys had 1 or 2 issues last season, but this season, and we're really, really determined, And the wonderful thing about it is the crowds, Bryn. People are back, We've had previous years where it's been a bit thin. You haven't had that kind of energy and enthusiasm you get, but Oulton Park, probably one of the most beautiful racing parks there, or racing grids there are in the country, and here we are, yeah.
You couldn't sum it up better than any of us, Ainsley. Your enthusiasm spills over, and we'd like to see that car somewhere on the podium. I'm sure you would too.
Yeah, I'm delighted for the guys, and put a lot of work into it. It's not, Century Sports, everybody connected with it. BMW, what a car that is, and genuinely excited. And all your sort of motor enthusiastic fans out there, watch us this season. We're going to be doing some wicked stuff.
Great stuff, Ainsley, great stuff. Now, Adders, I believe you're down there with Chris Froggatt.
Yeah, further up the grid, Chris Froggatt for British GT. We get used to talking about you in GT World Challenge. We get used to talking about you in a Ferrari. And yet here you are at Oulton Park and the Mercedes. What's all this about?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you know, we changed this year in GT World Challenge to the AMG. I think we needed more time in the car before Imola. The program came together quite last minute, so we didn't get all the time we need testing. I think we decided to enter a few more rounds in British GT just to get a bit more mileage, get used to the car, and develop ourselves as drivers, really, especially for myself, being sort of Gold Cup is extremely competitive this year in GT World Challenge, so where better to do it than at home and, again, at a very competitive grid.
Now, you, of course, have already driven on this new tyre because you drove it at Imola. How does it compare to the old Pirelli tyre?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly faster. We're still figuring it out. I mean, we were at Imola, and even here a little bit, we're not 100% yet, but I think we're getting to grips with it. And in terms of pace, it's definitely a quicker tyre, but it's definitely, perhaps the window is smaller in terms of temperature and pressures, so we're still sort of playing around and experimenting, and hopefully we get some useful data to carry ahead.
Excellent, Chris. Good luck. Let's go to GT4 land next, where Audi will start on pole position, and let's rejoin Bryn.
Playing around, trying to get some data, learn what's going on. That's something that you don't need to do, Senan, with this car here. The Audi is on pole.
Yeah, obviously it's a great way to start British GT this season. Obviously it's a long race coming up ahead. We're in the prime position, so hopefully we can stay here, have a pretty plain sailing race, but anything can happen, so fingers crossed.
What is it with the driver downer? Look, you've got your teammate in the car, Richard. He's done a sterling job in qualifying yesterday. As long as he brings it home for you?
Yeah, obviously I don't think I could have anyone better in the car. Got so much faith in him. Obviously it's just anything can happen in a race. Obviously it's been a long winter. Everyone's kind of coming out, some points to prove and everything else. So like I say, I think we just want a clean race, get some good points. And obviously we've got another race this afternoon, so it's just making sure we're in a good position for that too.
Well, it's glorious conditions, isn't it? And I know Adders is on with pole position for GT3, so good luck to you. Adders, over to you with Sean Balfe.
Thank you very much.
From the little Audi to the big Audi, from GT4 pole to GT3 pole, Sean Balfe sitting on pole position. Confident?
Feet are firmly planted, David. I've been doing this too long to be overconfident, so I'm comfortable with where we're at. Whether it be enough, I guess we'll know in an hour.
Sean, we'll leave you to it. I know you've got to go. We are in for a really dramatic start to the Intelligent Money British GT Championship season.
Yes, thank you very much. Right then, let's do this, shall we? 30th season of racing for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. The grid starts to clear, the fans start to get closer to the side of the track to get the best view possible ahead of what is going to be, I am sure, a brilliant 60 minutes of racing to start off the season. Pole position then is held, as we've documented, by the Balfe Motorsport Audi. They will start second for race 2 as well. So this team has a really good chance over the 2 races of bagging some good points, and it's easy to get wrapped up in the atmosphere of this as an individual event and forget that this is the start of a championship. All of these teams that are doing the full season anyway are wanting to get their season off to the best and highest point scoring start that they possibly can, and Balfe Motorsport certainly in a good position to do that. Alongside Sean Balfe will be Richard Neary, the Team ABBA Racing Mercedes that he shares with his son Sam, who wasn't feeling very well on Saturday, and they went the wrong way on qualifying setup. So although Richard starts well, Sam's session did not quite go to plan, so this is an important race for them to again try and bag some points. Behind them is the Enduro Motorsport McLaren, started by Morgan Tilbrook. Graham Davidson subbing in the Team Rocket RJN McLaren number 2 for Simon Watts, who sadly is down with COVID, and we wish him a speedy recovery. Hope to have him out for the next round of the championship, which is the Silverstone 500 on the 8th of May. So a big race coming early in the season. But Graham Davidson knows a thing or two about GT3 cars, having raced for TF Sport for many a year previously. So there we get our first unimpeded glimpse of the British GT field as it lines up on the grid then ahead of round number 1 of the championship. The Audi on the left, the Mercedes on the right. Again, if you're new to GT racing, then this will be a 2x2 rolling start. So they will do a lap behind the new Lotus safety car, which was unveiled a few days ago. And when they get round to the end of that lap, the safety car pulls into the pit lane and the race will get underway. The green flag lap begins with a very energetic wave of the green flag by one Ainsley Harriott, who's got from the back of the grid to the start gantry pretty rapidly. And great to see someone as genuinely enthusiastic about his racing as that, and willing to put his time, effort and money into supporting the series, and of course the Century Motorsport team as well. Time then for all the talking to stop, at least for the drivers, for them to do their talking on the track. Let's take a look, shall we, at how they line up for round one of the championship. Sean Balfe on pole in the Audi with Richard Neary's team ABBA Racing Mercedes alongside him. Remember, the AMs starting the GT3 cars for the first race. Morgan Tilbrook for Enduro is third alongside Graham Davidson's team Rocket RJN McLaren, and then on the third row of the grid is James Cottingham in the 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes, and that Redline Racing Lamborghini, got to get used to saying that, of Alex Maliakim. Row number 4 then is where we will find Kevin Say, winner here at Oulton Park last year, but in a Sky Tempesta Racing Mercedes this time. Nick Halstead in the Fox Motorsport McLaren, moving up from GT4. Michael Igo, the WPI Motorsport car, local man, starts 9th alongside Ian Loggy in the car that starts on pole for race number 2. Row 6 then, just outside the top 10, Kelvin Fletcher getting used still to that new McLaren for Paddock Motorsport, and Adam Ballon, who had an off in testing, starts 12th for Barwell Motorsport. Row 7 for John Ferguson in the Ram Racing car that he shares with Jamie Caroline. Mia Fluid's 76 team entry, car number 76, is alongside him. Towards the back of the GT3 grid then, Mark Sansom in the Assetto Motorsport Bentley, more on that later. Stuart Proctor for Greystone GT alongside him, and then right at the back of the GT3 field, the Team Parker Porsche of Nick Jones, and there will be no Betty Chen in the Century BMW. Then into GT4 we go, the pole position for race number 1 of the weekend, going the way of Richard Williams in the Stella Motorsport Audi, Benji Hetherington's Beluga Racing Porsche for company on row 1. Row 2 for GT4 is Jamie Orton's Team Parker Porsche, and Tom Edgar's Toyota Gazoo Racing UK Supra. Row 3 for Matt Topham, the reigning Pro-Am champion for Newbridge Motorsport. Jack Brown's Century BMW is next, and then on the 4th row in GT4, Jamie Day for R Racing in an Aston Martin, and the 2nd Century BMW of Tom Rawlings. Then we get right towards the tail end of the field with the Academy Motorsport Ford Mustang of Marco Signoretti, new driver to the championship, and Joe Wheeler, son of Peter Wheeler of TVR fame, alongside for Assetto Motorsports Ginetta, Ashley Marshall for Paddock Motorsport, and Aaron Morgan, the paraplegic driver racing for Team Brit, racing with hand controls in that McLaren, starts from 30th and last on the grid. Here we go then. It's been a long off-season, but the sun is shining at Oulton Park upon one of the best-looking grids we've had, possibly ever, I would say, in the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. Let's get this 30th anniversary season off to a cracking start, shall we? Sean Balfe on pole in the Audi, Richard Neary alongside him in the black and green number 8 team ABBA Racing Mercedes. 2 by 2 they come, out of Lodge Corner, through the dip, over Deer Leap, and now the safety car pulls out of the way. Eyes turn to the starting gantry where the lights go out now. We're away and racing in 2022. Up towards Old Hall Corner they go, and on the inside line the Audi tries to retain the lead. Richard Neary squeezes him, though there's a bit of a door banging between the two of them. Did they survive that? I think they did. Off wide goes the Redline Racing Lamborghini, side by side for the lead. Neary on the right, Balfe on the left. The next corner is a left-hander though, and the Mercedes goes through. Graham Davidson up the inside for second as well, and Sean Balfe gets mugged down to third. It could become 4th as they head down Lakeside.
He got a bit wrong-footed, didn't he? And then he was on the outside at Cascades and lost traction and got sideways, so he's going to be, what, 5th, diving down towards Island Bend, because through on the inside then the yellow Mercedes of James Cottingham. People say you can't overtake at Oulton Park. Well, yeah, you can if you're really brave on the first lap, as that wide goes Graham Davidson, but he hangs on to 2nd place, and so Richard Neary at his home circuit leads the way. Graham Davidson goes 2nd then, Morgan Tilbrook 3rd, 4th is James Cottingham, and Sean Balfe has got work to do, and he's sideways again. There is a car that cannot get the tyre switched on, and he's about to lose another place. Kevin Say, the Mercedes, comes up alongside him, and Sean Balfe, after all the hard yards in qualifying to bag pole position, he's seeing it unravel around him.
Oh, track position is so important at Oulton Park. He will be absolutely furious with the way this first lap has gone, and his drop down the order may not be done yet. Nick Halstead in the Fox Motorsport McLaren now arrives on his rear bumper. Over Clay Hill they go, up towards the right-hander at Druids. Neary leads the way, Davidson 2nd, 3rd for Tilbrook, Cottingham 4th, and Balfe does maybe now look like he's settling in slightly there in that 6th position.
So out of Druids for the first time, and yes, as the tyre starts to come up to temperature, progress should be made back again. Don't forget, although Sean Balfe is in the notional AM segment of the race, he is one of the more experienced, one of the more successful. So terms of pure pace, he should be able to make progress. But at the end of the opening lap, Richard Neary leading by 0.6 of a second. Graham Davidson is second, Morgan Tilbrook third, and Ian Loggy here is only 8th. He's on the back of Nick Halstead. Now, this is quite a step up for Nick, whereas Ian Loggy knows the track, knows the car, knows how to make progress.
And he has made progress. 10th on the grid, becomes 8th by the end of lap 1, and nearly, as we saw, 7th at Old Hall Corner. He's got Kelvin Fletcher behind him as well. Kelvin Fletcher inside the top 10, getting to grips now, it seems, with that Paddock Motorsport McLaren. Side-by-side action behind, but there is Richard Neary into the Shell hairpin, not yet getting away from the McLarens behind. For me, though, David, it's Morgan Tilbrook in third that looks the raciest. He's held position at the start, but we know that he and Marcus Clutton are quick around here, and he's right on the tail of Graham Davidson.
Yeah, Marcus Clutton, another Northwest driver, so home track for him. And Morgan Tilbrook, who hasn't half developed since the start of last year's British GT Championship season. Remember, he didn't actually start the race for a drama on the formation lap, and here he is as a race winner at the end of last year, running in third place, and actually on the back of Graham Davidson. So pitching now for second spot. There, number 6, Ian Loggy, under attack now from Kelvin Fletcher. Next in the queue is Michael Igo, then Adam Ballon. So those two Lamborghinis both really stuck in traffic at the moment.
Yes, they are indeed. Ballon started 12th, the WPI car in 9th position. So it's Ballon that's gained one and Igo's lost one, and they've sort of met in the middle at the back end of the top 10 there. This is 10th and 11th place, making its way towards Druids Corner. The leading quintet really make their way into Lodge Corner. Kevin Say, as we saw from him here at the back end of last season, really getting on with this circuit. You made the point on the grid that the Mercedes works well here, and he is catching this lead group.
Yeah, and of course his confidence is good because he knows he can win at Oulton Park. It was with Tom Onslow Cole last year, new co-driver for him in the person of Chris Froggatt for this season. But yeah, I mean, Kevin Say there in 5th place, belying his relative lack of experience of Oulton Park. And there he is, as you say, in 5th place, ahead of the man that started on pole position, Sean Balfe. But yeah, Sean will be furious, Andy, about the first 2 or 3 corners. Yeah,
he got a decent launch, but Richard Neary, we know, is feisty at the start of the races and really squeezed him into Old Hall Corner. We might see the bit of door banging that they do going into the turn. You can see Neary on the right just sort of comes across to the apex as if the Audi isn't there. That rather delays Balfe. Could even have bent something in the rear suspension of the Audi, which may explain why he was sideways for most of the first lap. Out wide went the red line car. The GT4 field got through cleanly. There is the Lamborghini. But then Neary, having fought for that ground on the outside at Old Hall, had the inside for Cascades.
Alex Malikin, 6th on the grid, 15th at the end of the opening lap. So that grassy moment certainly delayed him. There is Balfe sideways, so that cost him another place to Morgan Tilbrook. And let's have a look at how the start of the race was on board with Ian Loggy. Dives to the outside line, down towards Old Hall Corner. There goes Alex Malikin running out of road, new to GT3 cars. Now, up front in the GT4 squabble, we now have a new category leader, do we not? Because working up through to the front is 51 Porsche, so that is Ben Hetherington now ahead with 42 behind. So Richard Williams, the pole car, he's dropped back. Not a great first lap for Audis, was it? But the 718 Cayman ahead, Ben Hetherington, who is another local driver to Oulton Park, based from Alderley Edge, not far away. He leads the Audi in 2nd spot. Those two are together, and they're getting away from the rest.
They really are, aren't they? That gap back to the 3rd place Jamie Oulton car is a decent one. The Academy Mustang there into 4th place in class as well. That car started on the penultimate row of the grid. A brilliant opening couple of laps there for Marco Signoretti, making his British GT debut, and he's into 4th in the Ford Mustang. Now back to the GT3 leaders, and this gap is right down. Davidson catching Neary, but Tilbrook in 3rd has the fastest lap of the race.
Right, so what we now need for the race really is for Richard Neary to remain as the cork in the bottle and get everybody concertinaed up. That would help Sean Balfe, of course, in 6th place. Morgan Tilbrook, as you say, the quickest man on the circuit. There he is then, so the McLaren's working well. McLaren's, of course, have also won opening rounds of the championship here, go back 2 seasons. And Neary now, you kind of get the feeling is on borrowed time because he's got Graham Davidson all over him like a cheap suit. Davidson's problem is he's got to attack and defend at the same time. He's got Tilbrook crawling all over the back of him, and then James Cottingham is next in the queue. Now, James last time was half a second slower, but if they delay themselves, he'll be up with them. And look, you've got an 8-wheel Mercedes so close is Kevin Say at the back of him. Those two running as one.
Tilbrook weaving right and left in the wing mirrors of Graham Davidson. On board with Kevin Say, though, in 5th position. James Cottingham ahead. Just a note to say that the incident between Neary and Balfe at turn 1 is under investigation, so the clerk of the course spotted it and is looking into it to see whether a penalty needs to be applied. So more news on that as and when we get it. There goes that 4th place battle. Cottingham for now keeping the Sky 10 Besta Racing car behind, but lots of really close battles races, including this one for the lead. Neary hanging on for now. And of course, as long as he defends in all the right places, David, it's not going to be easy for Davidson to get through, even if he is quicker.
No, you're absolutely right, and the danger is he tries something and it doesn't work, and as the door is open, so Morgan Tilbrook is able to attack for that second place. So right now, Richard Neary consolidates the advantage. Now, last time around, the pace had gone up a little bit. They were all in the 37s, whereas there, James Cottingham was in the 36s. He was very, very impressive, James, in the limited GT3 racing he did last year, committing now to a full season. And Kevin Say, who is becoming something of an Oulton Park specialist, looking even quicker still, right on his tail, on board now in the Sky Tempesta Mercedes, the 2Cs Motorsport run car. And Kevin Say comes towards Britain's, the left, the right, the left flick over Hilltop once more. And he is looking very toey indeed now to try and make a move for that fourth place.
He did this last year, though. Didn't start on pole position in that race he won, but raced his way to the front brilliantly, took advantage of some incidents for others. And yeah, it was a really very impressive performance, as you quite rightly say. And you get the feeling that if he could clear Cottingham, he might have a chance of catching those leading trio who are still in the same order, but if anything, getting closer and closer by the corner.
I think you're right about that, and I think James Cottingham knows that as well, which is why he is very determined to stick out his elbows and make sure that the yellow DK Mercedes there hangs on to that fourth place. The two of them then coming now down towards Lodge Corner. So bear in mind that they're both out of the same stable, both run by 2Cs, different teams, different colour schemes. Now there in 6th place is Sean Balfe, who lapped quicker last time than Kevin Say, and for as long as Kevin is stuck, that's going to potentially bring the Audi back into the mix. The leaders are in the 36s again. Cottingham a 36.7 from Kevin Say, but quicker than both is Sean Balfe, and that Audi is coming alive.
Yes, and I think Sean, perhaps, if there is damage to the car, is working a way around it, or perhaps he just wanted to take a few laps to see if there was any residual damage from that tap he had from Neary. Now that he's confident in the car again, so the pace is getting better. On to the 6th lap of the race then, the leading trio covered by less than a second at the end of that lap. And as they make their way through the shell hairpin, this battle getting tighter as well. The two Mercedes almost touching through the right-hander. No way through there for Kevin Say. The best places to overtake really come at the very start and the very end of the lap, into Lodge Corner or into Old Hall Corner. Everywhere else, it's going to be a real challenge to find a way past the big Mercedes, which actually scoots away over Hilltop.
So 3 for the lead. We're on lap 6. You can see the clock ticking on down. Remember that we have a pit stop window to be made during the race, but it's staggered for the two classes. So 22 to 32 minutes for GT3. GT4, you're looking at the lead battle, 28 to 38 minutes. And this nose to tail, again, an Audi waking up as the race wears on. Ben Hetherington now coming under increased pressure. Number 42, Richard Williams, right there behind him. And at the start of the lap, the margin between them was less than 0.3 of a second. Richard Williams here is in a huge hurry.
Well, he was 0.6 quicker than Hetherington in qualifying on Saturday, so he knows he's faster than the Porsche, just can't find a way through. But in GT4, the cars are a little bit less aero-dependent, so it's easier to follow closely behind another car, and that's exactly what Richard's doing. He's filling the mirrors, he's weaving around in the braking zones, he is trying to force a mistake out of Benji Hetherington. That is going to be by far the best opportunity that he has to make the move. There go the leading GT3 cars back through Cascades. Balfe continuing to close in. We often see this, David, at Oulton Park. We get this kind of stalemate situation for the first 10-15 minutes, and then they catch the GT4 cars, and that's when the battles can really ignite.
Interesting, though, Sean Balfe's progress, you can see, is bringing him closer to the Mercedes. What he's not yet doing are race fastest laps. That's still claimed by Morgan Tilbrook from earlier on, but of course Sean Balfe will give way to Adam Carroll, who is a very formidable driver indeed. So you know, he's giving Adam Carroll all the tools for the second stint in this. It's going to be a fascinating race, absolutely. There is number 22, Sean Balfe, then from pole position. He's almost now caught the Mercedes fight, and it's very definitely 3 for the lead. They were covered by less than a second, first to third at the start of this lap, just a gnats over 9/10. Mercedes 4, Mercedes 5, and Audi 6. And then a little bit of a gap back to 7th place, where Nick Halstead actually is shaken off Ian Logie for the moment.
Impressed with Halstead here, moving up from GT4, as we said. It's still a McLaren, but a very different beast altogether. And he's really getting to grips with that 720S, it must be said, running a very solid 7th place in his GT3 debut. And as you said, getting away from the driver that finished runner-up in the championship last year. Through Lodge Corner come the leading trio. They blast past our commentary position, underneath the bridge, and across the start-finish line. In the second half of the lap, Neary seemed strong. It was a purple first and second sector there for Davidson. In fact, it's the fastest lap of the race for Graham. But by the end of the lap, the gap hasn't really come down. So that final sector is where the Mercedes looks good.
It's got hills, hasn't it? You've got Clay Hill, you've got Deer Leap, so all that grunt does seem to favour the Mercedes, whereas here, aero-friendly, fairly long straight, that sort of helps the McLarens as Jamie Caroline looks on. With Billy Munger standing alongside him. Jamie Caroline will take over number 15 Mercedes that's in 13th place. John Ferguson at the wheel of it, so he's got a bit of work to do, but we know the Mercedes are good around here, and talk about it again, the second stint is building up really nicely. Now, as third, Morgan Tilbrook just goes out of shot. You see them now come towards Britons. Graham Davidson, as Andy said, has done the fastest lap. Behind them, Cottingham actually lost 9/10 of a second last time, so here's your next battle pack with James Cottingham pretty much now becoming the cork in the bottle.
Yes, and that is not good news really for Kevin Say, because so far he's been able to focus entirely on attacking the yellow Mercedes in front, but now he needs to keep one eye to the mirrors as well. He goes for a move that doesn't work or goes offline to try and get a good run on the number 4 car. That could open the door for Balfe to come through, and you know that Sean is going to be keen to get on with this, having started on the pole position. After all, Druids go the leading 3. You mentioned there Holstead on his GT3 debut. The fact that he's doing well will actually give some comfort to Graham Davidson, because when we get to the pit stops, he will hand that number 2 McLaren over to another GT3 debutant in the shape of James Kell. So clearly the McLaren is fairly user-friendly, even for drivers that don't have much experience in it. And of course, as we get closer and closer to those driver changes, David, the dynamic of which of those second drivers is going to be quicker could completely shift the balance of this battle.
Absolutely right, because in a sense all the pros should be round about the same time. You know, you're talking hundredths rather than tenths or more, but therefore you've got to be in the mix. And off the road has gone John Ferguson at Lodge Corner. He's trying to get the car back in the right direction. Looking out of our window, I can see the car just hidden behind the trees, and you can see it up against the barrier. He finds reverse. Good man, he's not stalled it, but the danger here is he's trying to rejoin with traffic bearing down on him, and he got tagged into that by Alex Malikin, number 32. 2 into 1 did not go, and that makes Jamie Caroline's life even tougher. There it is from another angle. The Mercedes slides into view. John Ferguson has got going again, but the former Formula Ford 1600 racer badly delayed.
Lucky not to get beached there, though. If he'd have gone a foot or two deeper into the gravel, I doubt he'd have got back out. But the good news is he got well out of the way before the new GT4 leader got to Lodge Corner. I can see that we've now had the change with Richard Williams back ahead of Benji Hetherington. So the Stella Motorsport Audi back into the GT4 lead. The GT3 lead remains unchanged, but they're getting closer again. Just 7/10 that time, covering the top 3. There is Williams. He's not just got the lead, David, he's got a pretty comfortable margin.
He's checked out, hasn't he? That gap has suddenly really shot up down towards Cascades. Great battle going on for third in the class though now, because as they drop down towards us, the Jamie Oulton trying to keep Max Signoretti at bay. Then look, the Supra of Tom Edgar, so the Toyota, which is run from just down the road in nearby Northwich by Speedworks Motorsport, and in turn Edgar has got the Aston Martin behind him of Matt Topham, and this drama going through Old Hall Corner. This is third in GT4. The Mustang and the Porsche absolutely together, and elbows out and through on the inside goes Jamie Oulton. So the Carrera Cup GB driver converting to double driver GT racing, sticking out his elbows. Now 3 for the race lead, and look what is up the road. Our first back marker set to be negotiated.
Yes, now of course the tricky thing here for the GT4 cars is that they are having their own battles, and it's a narrow circuit. Even if they try to get out of the way, there's nowhere really to go. So all it takes is for a GT3 car to catch a back marker in a difficult place like this at Britain's, and it's going to absolutely mean they hemorrhage time to the cars behind. Richard Neary actually deals with the situation well there. He knew there was no way through for Davidson, but it means that Graham is closer than ever over Hilltop. Neary will have to defend into his lobs. You can launch an attack on the brakes here if you're feeling brave, but first race of the season, we're not even halfway through. Davidson decides, rightly so, I think, that discretion is the better part of valour. But you saw there, just with one back marker, how it can delay things in GT3. What will happen when they catch that almighty fight going on for third place in GT4?
And bear in mind as well, Graham Davidson is, if you like, super sub for Simon Watts. He might not be doing a full season. He doesn't want to do anything that would upset the season for James Kell, who is the season-long driver. He'll do stint 2, as now Morgan Tilbrook tries to commit to the inside line down to Lodge in the blue-nosed McLaren. Can't do it. Now, if these McLarens start squabbling, that's really going to help Richard Neary to build the lead. Look how much 4th, 5th and 6th have fallen back now, dropping into Lodge Corner. And in fact, 7th, Nick Halstead. He's closing on Balfe, who is closing on Say, who's got stuck behind Cottingham.
And Ian Loggy quicker than the lot of them in 8th place as well, with a new personal best. So Loggy is gaining ground on them and bringing Kelvin Fletcher and Michael Igo with him as well. Through Old Hall Corner goes Kevin Say, armfuls of opposite lock as he whacks the curb on the apex there, and they catch the Aaron Morgan-driven team, Britt McLaren, into Cascades. There was no way through on the inside for Cottingham. That will delay his exit speed, but of course then there's nowhere for Say to go because they both need to go up the inside of the McLaren, and actually Cottingham just about got away with that.
The Audi still looking nervous again at Cascades, tries to seize the initiative, couldn't find a way through on the inside going into Island Bend, but now Kevin Say is trying to really get on with the job. He's had enough of sitting behind Cottingham and he knows he's got to commit because otherwise he's going to get mugged by Balfe. Halstead is being caught by Loggy again. Kelvin Fletcher, 9th, is up with them as well. So you've got 3 for the lead, then 3 for 4th and 3 for 7th place.
Oh, into Hislops, that's the Paddock Motorsport McLaren trying to get out of the way, but actually Morgan Tilbrook unable to make the move, so he will lose ground temporarily at least to the leading 2. Hopping over the curbs through the Hislop chicane goes Cottingham with Say and Balfe, and as you quite rightly pointed out, that group behind getting closer and closer as well. Leaders at Druids Corner, and Davidson breaking clear now of 3rd place.
Yeah, now was that down to traffic or has Tilbrook made a little mistake? But he's lost chunks of time relative to how he was going earlier. He could have just been delayed up Clay Hill by the backmarking GT4 car, but it does now give Graham Davidson the chance, at least for a lap or so, to concentrate on looking out of the front, not having to think about behind him. But again, out of dear leap, as you look at Bob Neville there with a flat cap on. He is the RJN element of Team Rocket RJN that operates this car. The Mercedes up dearly with all the grunt, able to make that move and just pull away a little bit further. Now Joe Wheeler in the Ginetta, about to be negotiated by Richard Neary, who bravely commits. He committed a bit late maybe, but commit he did.
And I think he got through, but by the skin of his teeth that may have delayed him on exit slightly. What Davidson needs really is for Neary to be delayed in that final sector by a back marker.
Yeah.
That would then allow him to be close enough into Lodge, which is the best place to try and make a move. That's not happened yet, but they're not a million miles away from that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place battle within GT4. There it is, look, going through the Britain chicane, and there are the overall leaders. And guess where they're going to catch them, David? Somewhere in the final sector, I reckon.
Could well be, and as they come now down towards Hislop, all of these cars going through shot, battling for position. So there is Edgar, there's Topham, there's Dave, there's Jack Brown. They're going to come across relatively shortly. The BMW is pretty much nose to tail there, as it's still now really just Davidson on the attack. Tilbrook has not yet caught up. He lost 0.7 of a second on that previous lap. But of course, not only have they got back markers to get past, those back markers are busy squabbling for position as well. They don't want to compromise their race by being gentlemanly and getting out of the way. So this is going to make life really awkward indeed for Richard Neary, who sees this absolute wall of traffic ahead of him and his heart sinks to his boots. And look what's happening for second. McLaren's nose to tail suddenly.
Yeah, because Tilbrook right on the tail of Davidson. We're only 2.5 minutes from the pit window opening though, so that is maybe good news, but they're probably going to clear this group before that happens. Through on the inside of the BMWs goes Neary, and that's actually helped him, look, because neither of the Century cars is overtaken by the pair of McLarens. Now Davidson gets alongside them, and this is where things get very sketchy. Tilbrook almost on the grass, can't find a way through. They are not expected to pull out of the way, the GT4 cars. They are expected to hold their line and make the GT3 cars overtake them. The onus is very much on the faster car to make a clean overtake. The Century cars side by side and almost making contact. Through, though, will go the number 9.
And we have a 10-second stop-go penalty for Alex Malikin's Lamborghini for causing a collision. Remember, he turned around John Ferguson. A 10-second stop-go penalty for number 32. So the race director, Peter Daly, clamping down on driving standards nice and early as they come then now out of the Britain chicane. Now Tilbrook is the one that's been dealt a bad hand in the traffic, not deliberately, but he's got a bit stuck there. Look behind number 23 of Jamie Day, the Aston Martin, leaders into Hislops. Now they've got to get past the Supra. Tom Edgar at the wheel of it, and look, Richard Neary trying to defend the race lead, trying to get through that traffic without losing time. Dirt kicked up at him by the Supra, and Neary goes one side, he's going to get delayed, and Davidson around the outside, and they touch at the top of Clay Hill. Onto the grass goes Graham Davidson, he demolishes the bollard, he's demolished the tyres as well, and that was the two leading cars side by side, and Bob Neville sees it all unfold around him, and that was Graham Davidson's big moment to try and go for the race lead. It has not worked. Richard Neary's Mercedes is still there.
And tries to get up the inside of the Academy Mustang. That's exactly what we feared when they caught that group of back markers, and as Neary was delayed by the Toyota, as you quite rightly said, Davidson saw his chance, there wasn't the space, and off into the barriers he goes. Lots of damage to the McLaren, and sadly James Kell, helmet on, ready to go, is probably not going to get a stint in that car, at least in this race. Neary somehow hangs on to the lead, though. Tilbrook will be to second place, and now that Cottingham and Say and Balfe battle becomes the fight for the bottom step of the podium. A shame to see that, David. There is the number 2 car. It's not going to get going again by the looks of it. A shame to see, but we did sort of predict that that's where the drama could come.
Absolutely, and you know, Graham Davison had to try something. There was an opportunity, he took it. Richard Neary, as we know, is a feisty driver, and he was determined to defend, and the net result of that was just that little brush. But the cars are so loaded up at the top of Clay Hill, didn't take much to unsettle the McLaren. I mean, it could have been a lot worse, actually, that. So, OK, the car looks like it's out of the race, but hopefully it can be made good for race 2. Tilbrook to the grass, now delaying himself. But he's not yet going to fall into the clutches of Cottingham, is he? Because he's still stuck in the traffic. But Morgan Tilbrook, a tiny error, and that's cost him ground.
Yeah, car back up to speed, so it was an error, not a problem. But, yeah, good time to do it, really, when he's not under any threat from the cars behind. The same cannot be said of James Cottingham, though. He's about to try and negotiate this group of troublesome GT4 cars. And Kevin Say is right on his tail still. Sean Balfe dropping to about a second behind these two at the start of the lap, but a lot of these gaps are elasticating because of the traffic.
GT3 pit window is open. Now, if you are stuck in traffic, be it a battle or back markers, now is a good time to get in. And I think most will come in now anyway, because in every case, the quicker driver awaits, and yet the leader is in. So Richard Neary dives for the pit lane. His son, Sam, BRDC Rising Star, will take over the Mercedes. And look, in comes Tilbrook to give way to Marcus Clutton. In comes Cottingham, in comes Say, in comes Balfe, in comes Halstead. I'll tell you if anybody stays out. GT4 will stay out because their window is not yet open, but it makes absolute sense to get your slower driver out of the car, get your quick one in.
Interestingly, Kevin Say did not pit. He is the only GT3 car so far to stay out, and I think he will continue to be the only one. Now, there is method in that, because look how busy the pit lane's getting. We're going to have, what, 15 GT3 cars piling in at the same time. It's a narrow, tight pit lane, very easy to trip over someone and end up with damage or losing loads of time. So leave him out one extra lap. He's not going to lose a lot of time by staying out another lap, and then when he comes into the pit lane, it should be empty. Out goes Marcus Clutton. I think that could be a good move, though, from the Sky Tempesta team.
Interesting, isn't it? I mean, they're not necessarily fighting for a championship, so they don't need to worry about points necessarily, as you see John Ferguson in to give way to Jamie Caroline. That is Kevin Say, Chris Froggatt to take over. More brain-racking has Chris Froggatt ever raced at Oulton Park, because he has largely done European Ferrari Challenge before coming into GT World Challenge Europe. But as down the pit lane comes Sam Neary, second behind him now is the Cottingham Lewis Williamson car. So what has that done to the Tilbrook Clutton McLaren? That looks like it's dropped back on the pit stops.
I think it's gone out already, hasn't it? It was a very quick stop for Tilbrook, unless they're yeah, it's not in the pit lane.
It is, it's gone. Yeah,
but it was out some 20 seconds before Neary, which doesn't seem right to me. So yes, pass. Couldn't tell you why, but we'll try and get some news on that if we can. But I reckon maybe Morgan Tilbrook's still in the car. Perhaps they couldn't get in.
He's missed his pit box, apparently. Yeah. He missed his pit box, and he's going round again. So that's why. So, yes, they're leading. In comes Kevin Say, but back in is going to have to come Morgan Tilbrook. So he missed his pit box, has had to do another lap to get to it at the second time of asking. So that's why it was a quick pit stop.
Yes, and that's why Sky Tempesta stayed out. That's exactly the kind of thing that can happen. Yeah. I mean, ask Valentino Rossi how hard it can be sometimes to find your correct pit box. Not quite as busy a pit lane here, but certainly can be a challenge. Morgan Tilbrook then a costly error. So we get our first glimpse of the pros now in GT3. Jules Gounon versus Phil Keane. That's a fight I'd buy a ticket for.
Absolutely right. So Phil Keane, the former factory Lamborghini driver with current Mercedes factory driver Jules Gounon, full send to the inside, couldn't do it, not for the want of trying. Welcome to Oulton Park, Jules. So first lap out of the pit lane, and he is on it.
He really is, isn't he? Phil Keane, weirdly, not quite able to get up to speed as quickly as Gounon, but Gounon, remember, was the fastest driver in the second qualifying session. And that was a new qualifying lap record, so we could well see some race lap records broken today, and it may be this man that does it, because he gets a good run out of Druids Corner, looks to the inside, maybe there's going to be a gap. The Mercedes is good on the brakes, but so is Phil Keane. He chops to the inside, holds on for now, but Gounon does not want to waste time here.
No, you can tell that, can't you? So now the move is going to come at Oulton Park. Is it the Mercedes good up dear lead? Phil Keane defends. Remember, these are the pros, very, very, very pro in the pro-am element of this championship. Gounon wide into Old Hall, tight out, gets the run up alongside. He's going to have the inside for Denton's, the little king. It's the outside line for Cascades, but he's done it anyway. Jules Gounon goes through, looks for the apex, back through to the inside line there. Brilliant stuff, and these are the pros at the top of their game.
I think we've got a new contender for most exciting pro driver. In the absence of Dennis Lind, enter Jules Gounon. That was a brilliant bit of driving, and through he goes. We'll have to wait for this shuffle to be completed to see what position this is for, but it will be something well inside the top 10, and both of them expected to be championship contending cars. There is Sam Neary, so Sam Neary will, you would imagine, end up with the lead. Out onto the track has gone Chris Froggatt, I think behind this car. Sam was not feeling very well on Saturday, and they said they went the wrong way on setup. It favoured Richard's driving style, didn't work so well for Sam, so they'll hopefully have tweaked that for today. Sam's had a day off, of course, yesterday on Easter Sunday to recuperate, and now he'll be out there firing on all cylinders, I'm sure, and I reckon at the end of the lap we will see him as the race leader, yes, because there is Froggatt some way back in the pack.
Yeah, he's fallen behind Sandy Mitchell, who is another one to watch, part of the Lamborghini factory roster, young driver programme. And so as the leaders go through, it is going to be Sam Neary then for the race lead, ahead of Lewis Williamson now in the yellow number 4 Mercedes, 3.2 seconds, and Lewis Williamson's first flying lap is the best of the race. Look back here, Sandy Mitchell is under attack from Chris Froggatt. He might not know Oulton Park as well as others, but it is not suggesting in his pace that that's the case, because he's almost pushing the Lamborghini around.
So close to contact, I think they just avoided him, but Sandy Mitchell then, who comes across the line 8th, just ahead of Froggatt, who was running inside or whose car was running inside the top 5 before the pit stop. So actually, even one more lap staying out for Kevin Say cost them time. The pros get in, and as we've seen from Jules Gounon, they're straight on the pace immediately, and that's why they try and get that pit stop for the AMs out of the way as soon as possible, and that now leaves Chris Froggatt with quite a bit of work to do.
The team manager of the race-leading car is being summoned to the race director. Now, there was that little brush at Old Hall, there was that brush at Clay Hills Summit with Graham Davidson, bit of smoke coming out of the Lamborghini. That, I think, is tyre against bodywork. But for that to have happened, that suggests contact somewhere as well. But again, let's just keep an eye on that, just to make the point again. The leading car, team manager, being summoned to the race director.
Okay, again, we'll let you know when we get updated. I didn't see contact between these two at Shell. They got very close at launch, but that was half a lap ago. So maybe there was another touch as they went through the hairpin. That is a lot of tyre smoke, though. And Pirelli, as strong a tyre as they make, I think they're going to be watching on with concern, as will Barwell here. There's only going to be one winner there, and it's probably not going to be the left rear tyre. That rub is going to be carving a gash in that left rear tyre, and I fear that they're going to have to pit to get that sorted unless it abates. It's certainly holding up Sandy Mitchell here, distracting him maybe, and this is maybe the opportunity for Chris Froggatt. Gets a good run out of Druids. The gap is there on the inside, and he should be able to brake later than the Lamborghini. He does, gets to the inside line. The apex is his. The position isn't his yet, though. Sandy Mitchell standing his ground on the outside.
And he's got the inside for Deer Leap, but it's going to be the outside for Old Hall. There they are, absolutely dead set level over the timing line. Chris Froggatt has the inside line. The road comes to him. The smoke subsides briefly until the load comes onto it, going through the right-hander. There are a lot of right-handers at Oulton Park, which doesn't really help the left rear corner of the car. So Froggatt now goes through up into 8th place.
Yes, he does. Lead gap 2.5 seconds, by the way. Another good lap last time from Williamson. He's got about 3/4 of a second a lap in hand over Sam Neary. There is Sam. There, the yellow Mercedes of Williamson in the background. They're over 10 seconds ahead of the 3rd place car, which is the Balfe Motorsport Audi. So Adam Carroll, one of the most experienced drivers on the grid, into 3rd position. Watch his pace with interest. If these two start squabbling, that gap may come down to 3rd place.
Absolutely right. Now, the number 8 Mercedes was fractionally under its pit stop time, only by less than 1/10 of a second. But it did a 69.948, not a 70-second pit stop. And the 2nd place car was a 65.5 second pit stop, which is also under the 70. So 1 and 2 on the road, both are under the regulation pit stop time, looking at the data that we have from TSL.
One by considerably more than the other, though, you would have to say. The 2nd place car nearly 5 seconds underneath it. That will almost certainly end up with a penalty. What will happen with the Nearys, we shall wait and see. Right, more pit lane activities now, because the GT4 pit window has opened. So in come the drivers. Now, there are only 2 Pro-Am entries in GT4, so they run to the same format as GT3. The Am starting this race, they want to get the Pro in as soon as possible. The rest of the silver field, though, are silver driver combos. So the 2 drivers are much more evenly matched. Not as quick as a Pro, quicker than an Am, and therefore they can be a bit more flexible about their pit stop time.
Now, with the 2 leading cars, both with these question marks over short pit stops, this is effectively the fight for 2nd place. It is Jamie Stanley versus Jules Gounon, and Jules, we have seen, is easily able to
attack regulars in the British GT Championship. Here comes another one as the cars accelerate now up towards Britain. Absolutely nose to tail. Now, Jamie knows his way around Oulton Park very, very well. Still a very impressive, much underrated driver is Jamie Stanley. He was GT4 champion going back many moons with Christian Dick in their Speedworks Ginetta. And Jules Gounon has a look on the inside at his lot, stands on the brakes as late as he dares. Can't yet commit, but I suspect it might be through Deer Leap and the inside for Old Hall. Let's see.
Let's find out then. Ian Loggy watching on, always looks fairly calm and reserved in the pit lane, but I know he gets as nervous as all of the co-drivers do when they're watching their teammates battling on track. No need to be nervous when it's Jules Gounon, though. We know what a safe pair of hands he usually is, and today he's in a feisty mood. He's on the tail of the McLaren. And you're absolutely right, this could end up being a really important fight for podium positions if we get penalties for the leading two. The leading two that are separating again now. Sam Neary slightly quicker than Lewis Williamson, but we're hearing now that car number 8, the race-leading car of Sam Neary, is being given not one, but 2 penalties. One for the contact at turn 1, and another one, the stop-go penalty for the pit stop infringement that you mentioned. That's the race leader. We have to assume there's one coming for second place as well. It's all turned on its head.
Yes, whether the contact was the first corner or the one with Graham Davidson, we'll wait and see. But either way, 2 penalties. That is your hat well and truly nailed on, isn't it? They can't come back from that, surely. But there, number 6, then, Jules Gounon, he could yet win this race. He's 5th on the road. Now, he needs to clear Jamie Stanley because Adam Carroll's lap times are comparable. He needs to get on with this and try and bring down that gap as best he can. And Ian Loggy knows it. 27 minutes of the race to go. The first half of it has absolutely flown by. So much has happened. And the ABBA Racing squad will be absolutely gutted. But rules are rules. Down to Hislops. Gounon pulls out, pulls back in again, and Andy, look up the road. There's traffic.
Here we go again, and it's that same group of cars, roughly speaking, that caused all the dramas, inadvertently caused all the dramas, about 10 or 15 minutes ago. Up Clay Hill we go then. Jules Gounon in the car that started 10th on the grid is into 5th, but as we've been saying, that could become 3rd very shortly. And if he could go on and win, that would be impressive. In the last 10 Oulton Park races, the lowest down the order a race winner in GT3 has started was 8th. That was last year for WPI Motorsport. Gounon looking to change that. There's no room on the inside, Jules, but that weave distracted Jamie Stanley ahead of him, forced the mistake, and now they almost draw level over Deer Leap. No, the McLaren stays in front for now.
Jamie Stanley is doing a ripper job of defending. A big flash of the lights from Jules to say, come on up quicker, but they're racing for position. Jamie Stanley gets to the apex, but again, the Mercedes, good drive off the corner, but it can't quite get up alongside, gets squeezed at Denton's. Gounon needs to try to duck up the inside coming out of Cascades. Guess what? Face full of McLaren that then gets a little twitch, goes a little bit wide. And again, Jules Gounon can't find a way through. He almost gets squeezed towards the grass as well. We've got track limit drive-throughs coming, one of which is for the Kevin Say, Chris Froggatt Mercedes. But looking at this, round the outside goes Gounon. Again, he can't do it. And look, Phil Keane is back with him.
Yeah, Phil Keane loving seeing this ahead of him. Jamie Stanley at the moment is Phil Keane's best friend because he's brought him right back onto the tail of the Mercedes, which is clearly the quicker of these 3 cars. But Gounon struggling to find a way through, gets the better exit out of the Britain chicane, over hilltop. Stanley this time doesn't defend, and Gounon sees the chance. No, not late enough on the brakes. The McLaren again retains the position. This, I remind you, is the fight for 4th place at the moment. But this is got action written all over it, hasn't it? Out of Knickerbrook they go. Back up the hill, the back markers ahead. The GT4 traffic needs to be watching its mirrors. It's one of the Century BMWs. Stanley goes to the left, Gounon with him. That'll put him on the outside line for Druids, though. He gets past the BMW, but he's offline. He'll pick dirt up on his tyres, and that just gives Stanley a moment of respite.
So down they come towards Lodge Corner. Phil Keane drops off slightly from the back of Gounon as he has to get through the traffic. Right, last time Jules was a little bit impeded at Lodge because Jamie Stanley's car was a little bit slower. He almost got into the back of him. Now it looks like he gets a clear run coming over the timing line, but he's not near enough and he doesn't want to get caught behind a back marker. It's the Supra that's also got to drive through for track limits coming, and Gounon now commits to the inside. The Mustang arrives out of the pit lane. That's going to get in the way of the Mercedes as Jules Gounon opens the door. Brilliant stuff. That is why you are a pro GT3 racer. Brilliant.
Jules had a second to react to that Academy Mustang coming out of the pit lane. Not only did he react to it, he found a way to use that to his advantage and move into 4th place, which is about to become 2nd place because the race-leading car has pitted with its penalty. And now, David, we get it confirmed that car number 4, which had taken over the lead, that car being driven now by Lewis Williamson, also being given a 5-second stop-go penalty. That will put the Balfe Audi, driven now by Adam Carroll, into the lead and Gounon into 2nd. Wow.
Absolutely wow. So Adam Carroll's last lap was a 35.9, Jules Gounon's was a 38. But of course he was stuck in traffic, so we need to be looking at gaps at the end of this lap, as now Jamie Stanley is under attack from Phil Keane. You are on board with the WPI Lamborghini. This is Keane at the wheel of it, and the target for him, as we've been saying, is Jamie Stanley, who is also doing a very, very impressive job in the McLaren, because Jamie makes the step up to the car for this year. Right, so there is Jules Gounon. Now, I'll hold my hands up. You may have spotted over the previous 40 minutes nearly that I'm a Gounon fan. I hope you agree that you are as well now, because he is something special, isn't he? He's won the Spa 24 Hours. That was in an Audi. He was ADAC GT champion in the Corvette. He was part of the Bentley factory program, now part of the Mercedes factory program, and he is an absolute star, and he's got 23 minutes left to convince you, if you aren't convinced yet, of what a star he is. Now, into the pits has come Mercedes number 4, so it is Adam Carroll, 4.2 seconds up the road ahead of Jules Gounon. Last lap for Adam Carroll, 36.4, Gounon 34.9, and he's got 22.5 minutes to go. This is on.
You'll have to assume traffic had something to do with that. I don't think Carroll is normally that much slower, but you're right. I think Gounon's in that kind of mood, isn't he? He's clearly got the car hooked up well, and he's going to be chasing after the race leader. So Carroll takes the lead, Gounon 2nd. This now becomes the fight for 3rd. So Jamie Stanley's been on and off the podium a few times over the last 5 minutes or so. He's back into 3rd now, with other people pitting for stop-go penalties. Right behind him, the WPI Motorsport car of Phil Keane, which also did not have a brilliant starting position yet. 9th on the grid for the Igo and Keane car, and here it is on the fringes of the podium places. He closes in on the McLaren into Hislop's corner. Can't find a way through just yet. We're still, by the way, waiting for the last few GT4s to pit, which is why we're not giving you the full GT4 order. But as if by magic, there was the car that I think is going to find itself in a podium place. Darren Turner is going to be at least into the top 3 in GT4 in that Newbridge Motorsport Aston Martin that goes a lap behind the new race leader, and I think will be in contention for the victory before the next 21.5 minutes are done with.
Warren Hughes with the headset around his neck, part of the Balfe squad, watching on with Sean Balfe, and they see this car, the race-leading Audi, break the beam. That is 23 laps in the book, 21 minutes and change on the clock. What a race, and we're not done yet because the gap is down. It's down to 3.6 seconds, Audi to Mercedes, and there in the background is Jules Gounon storming along as he comes now down towards Cascades. So the fastest lap of the race, still surprisingly perhaps not done by Jules Gounon, done by Lewis Williams on his first flying lap in the stint. But look at how the gap has been coming down. Now, of course, the traffic that Sean Balfe and now Adam Carroll have had to contend with is now having to be coped with by Jules Gounon. But he picks up the place there on track against Darren Turner. And, of course, Darren, as a pro, gets out of the way, knows exactly what to do and where to do it.
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned fastest lap, by the way. Lewis Williamson's 1:34.247 is a new race lap record. It beats Callum McLeod's record in the Team Parker Racing Bentley from 2017 by about 0.4 of a second. So these new Pirelli tyres, both in qualifying and the race, are yielding quite a bit more grip and therefore lap time than their predecessors. So new GT3 lap record. We'll get to the GT4 one after, but I reckon we'll see that lap record drop as well. 3rd place battle back through the Knickerbrook sequence, then up Clay Hill. And Keane, having caught Stanley, sort of stagnating, if anything, dropping back on this lap.
Just in case you were wondering whether Jules Gounon was trying or not, he's had his first track limit warning. So he is, as they say, leaving nothing on the table in his quest to get onto terms with Adam Carroll. Now, don't forget that Adam was, of course, A1 GP champion. He was a star in GP2. He raced briefly for Audi in the DTM. He's been a Ferrari champion of late. So there, as they turn through, you just see 3rd and 4th go through shot. This is 5th after the penalty. Lewis Williamson, 6th behind is number 76, Ewan Hankey now. And then in 7th place, it will be number 3 now, so that means that 93 Chris Froggatt, I think, has dropped back on that lap. Leaders go through, gap 3.2 seconds. Again, Gounon is quicker than Carroll.
Yes, he is that time around by about half a second. It's about half a second a lap, isn't it? So give him another 5 or 6 laps. He's going to be right on the tail of the Audi, and that is if the Audi doesn't get delayed by any back markers in the meantime. Out of Old Hall Corner goes the Sandy Mitchell driven car this is, in 8th position. Lewis Proctor on his tail, so 8th and 9th places at battle here. Slightly disappointing this race for Barwell, you'd have to say, whereas Lewis Proctor will be loving the fact that he's in amongst the top 10 cars. He looks a bit quicker than the Lamborghini at the moment, but again, it's that age-old question. You may be faster than someone, but passing them around here is not the work of a moment. You've got to be prepared to take a bit of a risk. We've seen some of those risks pay off today, some of them maybe not so much. Proctor needs to be careful about this.
Number 11, Martin Plowman's McLaren is in for tyre pressure adjustment. That's a car struggling to get the tyres to switch on, as you look at Sandy Mitchell here, coming under attack from Lewis Proctor. So Lamborghini versus McLaren. The Lamborghini is what with the BOP and also the new tyre, really struggling around here. Now we've got more stop-go penalties coming in GT4. I think this is for short pit stops again, Andy.
Yes, and one of them is the race leader. Senan Fielding had shaken out of all of that in the Stella Motorsport Audi. He's being given a 6-second stop-go penalty and a 2-second one for the number 68 car. That's the Team Brit McLaren of Bobby Trundley.
Whatever GT3 can do,
Yes.
GT4 can do as well. Audi on pole, penalty for the leader. Sandy Mitchell then really having to work overtime to fend off the McLaren. Now, Jules Gounon, fastest lap of the race. A 1:33.9, 2 seconds the gap has come down to. So Jules Gounon does the fastest lap of the race and has brought the gap down against the overall race leader.
And takes that lap record into the 1:33s. That is impressive stuff. Look who's catching this pair, by the way. It is that blue and orange Enduro Motorsport car, number 77, of Marcus Clutton. So that car, of course, we documented its pit stop issues when Morgan Tilbrook missed his pit box. They could still salvage a half-decent result out of it. Right, 6-second stop-go penalty for the 42 car. We've just covered that. That is the car that leads the race, and that means that taking over the lead of the class, in fact, it's already served this penalty, it will be now Darren Turner. So I said Turner would be there or thereabouts.
Yep.
He's in the lead by 16 seconds.
And of course, that is a Pro-Am car, as against the Silvers. And Silvers, of course, also cop an extra 14 seconds anyway. However, Darren Turner has also got a stop-go penalty of 1 second for being short on the pit stop, and 65, Seb Hopkins, Jamie Oulton Cayman has got, 3 seconds for being short.
And that car's in second place in GT4, so the top 2 GT4 cars, essentially the top 3, all being given short pit stop times. So that will now move Ross Wiley into the lead in, good news for you, David, the number 51 Porsche. It's been nowhere near the leaders since that pit stop, but because the others messed up the pit stops, they're going to be handed the race lead.
It's like nobody wants to win GT4. And of course, it's down to the teams. You know it's a 40km/h speed limit at Oulton Park. You have to know the delta time through the pit lane, and therefore the onus is on the team to release the car. And if you're a 10th over, surely that is better than being a 10th under, because you know you're going to get hammered for it. There's going to be a penalty.
And the penalty will be more than a 1/10 of a second, won't it? Because it's not just the extra seconds that you have to stop, but the trundling down the pit lane and pit lane speed. And we've made the point several times, it's so competitive this year. You're not going to lose 1 or 2 places, you're going to lose several. It's going to be harder than ever to get that time back.
Now, remember we saw the smoke coming from the Sandy Mitchell Lamborghini. An incident involving Mitchell and Froggatt is under investigation. So we were wondering whether there had been a rub. That would seem to give evidence of the fact that there was, as Darren Turner comes in to serve his stop. Go, Darren, you can go. And I think the car doesn't want to fire up. So this is a sort of an extra enforced penalty. That was yet more time lost that didn't need to be lost.
Wouldn't bet against Darren Turner gaining some of this ground back, though. He is, as we've said, a pro driver, now surrounded by silver-graded drivers in GT4. He's also a very good pro driver, so he should be able to gain a few places back. We'll see at the end of the lap exactly how far down the order he's dropped. Hopkins has pitted as well, so it should now be Ross Wiley that takes over the lead of the class, and possibly Senan Fielding back into second place. Now, for the GT3 lead, game on the 22nd lap of the race. This gap was 4.2 seconds. 5 laps later, they're absolutely nose to tail. Gounon's done another lap record, a 1:33.8, and he is on the tail of the Audi with 15 minutes to go.
So can we make Jules Gounon on his Oulton Park debut the king of Oulton Park? That would be the Crown Jewels, I suppose. Down through Old Hall Corner they go. The gap, a 1/5 of a second as they start lap 28. And with 15 minutes to go, Jules can almost bide his time here. He doesn't have to do it at the next corner. He can just sit there. Look at where the Audi is strong, look at where the Mercedes is strong, and make a plan.
Drive-through penalty car 93. I'm guessing that's for that incident you just mentioned up at the Shell Hairpin, we think it was. So that car will also now duck into the pit lane for the 3rd time. Actually, that's its 2nd penalty of the race, for 2 different reasons. But there you go. Right then, lead battle up towards the Britain's chicane. Now, Gounon is quicker, there's no doubting that. We've seen that in the lap times, but where does the Mercedes make its move? We've said already in this race, David, that that car seems good in the second half of the lap. That's where a lot of the good overtaking opportunities are. So, advantage Gounon in that respect, but Carroll's going to make that Audi the widest car on the track, surely.
I mean, Sean Balfe looking a bit nervous there, almost a little bit resigned to the fate of the Audi, but Adam Carroll, we know he's a class act, and he is going to do everything he possibly can to repel the challenge of Jules Gounon. Fifth of a second between them. The traffic could play a part. As you see there, Jules up past the water tower, has to just find the gap, goes past the slower car. Down they come towards Lodge Corner. Time is still on his side as Ian Loggie gets another espresso in his system, ready to perhaps bounce towards the podium in due course. But out of Deer Leap, this is where the Mercedes has traditionally been strong, with all that grunt to drag it out of Deer Leap to go over the timing line. Now heading towards Old Hall Corner to start lap 29. The gap's gone up a little. It's now a whopping 4 tenths.
We do see this though. Once you've done all the catching, you then get stuck at the pace of the car that you've caught, and so until you make an overtake, you're not going to get any closer. Now 4 tenths between the two of them. Jamie Stanley in third place is now almost matching them, but he's 8.8 seconds back. He's still got Phil Keane on his tail, with Lewis Williamson 5th, Ewan Hankey in 6th, Will Tregurtha 7th, Sandy Mitchell 8th, Lewis Proctor 9th, and Marcus Clutton in the 77 car into the top 10. Through the shell hairpin they go. Audi still leading from Mercedes. It's got a very Germanic feel to it, this, but Audi and Mercedes, two of the real heavy hitters in GT3 racing. Nice to have an Audi actually in the GT3 category in British GT. It's leading for now, but can it stay there?
Sean Balfe is looking ever more worried about life, isn't he? But he has got a great co-driver to rise to the task. So Jules Gounon pulls out and pulls back in again, trying to unsettle the Audi. But Adam Carroll has done many a mile in a race car. He knows how to defend. This is going to be an absolutely fantastic battle right to the end of this opening round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. A good GT4 scrap going on there as the Toyota Supra, which has now got Jack Mitchell at the wheel of it. Jack, although he's from Kent, has got family based in this part of the world, so it's a sort of second home for him. And he, in turn, is squabbling away down in the GT4 battle, soon to be caught by the two race leaders. They're heading up to the end of lap number 29. Does Jules Gounon start the attack once again? He's there or thereabouts.
Yeah, not maybe quite close enough into Old Hall Corner. I feel sorry for the GT4 drivers. We haven't had any time to take our eyes off this battle, but I can tell you we've had another lead change in GT4. Senan Fielding, despite the penalty, is back ahead of Ross Wiley now. So the Stellar Motorsport Audi leads in GT4. Audi's leading in both classes, but this is not good news for the GT3 example. Adam Carroll closing in there on the Team Parker Racing Porsche. He got balked at the apex of Cascades, just gets over to the left-hand side of the road to cover the opportunity for Gounon to go through, and then as they scoot through Island Bend, the Audi gaps the Mercedes fractionally again. But for the time being, David, it's Audi's leading in both classes.
Yeah, Adam Carroll doing a great job, isn't he? He's not cracking under the pressure, coping with Gounon behind him, coping with the traffic. Carroll on song as he comes down through Britons then, as Ian Loggie looks at the data, looks at the pictures, and the car in a moment will accelerate over hilltop, then past the Ginetta, number 56, that's now got Freddie Tomlinson at the wheel of it. And again, Jules Gounon pulls to the inside, trying to unsettle Adam Carroll, trying to distract him, to no avail.
Yeah, Carroll's not going to make many mistakes. If he does make one, then Gounon needs to pounce on it straight away. That's something we know he can do, though, because he pounced to get into this, what eventually became second place when he cleared Jamie Stanley as the Mustang came out of the pit lane. So we know he's got cat-like reflexes. He must have to be one of the best sort of pro drivers out there, as many people seem to think of him. Gets a good run out of Druids, looks to the inside at Lodge again. He's not close enough to make the move, just trying to distract Adam Carroll. It's not working yet, but it's got a sense of inevitability about it, this.
So over the timing line once more, down towards Old Hall Corner. Adam Carroll then, the former A1 GP champion when he represented Ireland. He drove for Audi in DTM. He's won the Ferrari European Championship of late. He was a real gun in GP2. In terms of talent, he should have been, like many, I suppose, on a Grand Prix grid. He never got there, really, through lack of finance. But I know we go on about Jules Gounon and what a star he is. Adam is absolutely his equal. He may not have made the name in GT racing in isolation that Jules Gounon has, but his CV lacks for nothing.
No, absolutely. He is a hugely experienced driver and very, very highly regarded in the paddock. A lot of people took notice when his name was announced on the entry list for this season, and so far living up to that, because there's no doubting that Gounon, if and this were any other driver that Gounon had caught, then I think he would have probably found a way past them by now. But Adam Carroll placing the Audi in all the right places, and he's smart enough to know, they both are in fairness, smart enough to know where their strengths, where their car's strengths lie. Carroll knows where he needs to defend, knows where he doesn't need to. It's unnecessary defending that can sometimes end up costing you even more, and that's not what Carroll is doing.
Yeah, I said, didn't I, when Gounon caught Adam Carroll, he's got over 15 minutes to do it and he can bide his time. Well, we're down to 9 minutes now, so the urgency is going to start to come in number 6 Mercedes, and Gounon has sat there for a number of laps. He has worked out where the Audi is strong, and depressingly for him, it's strong in quite a few places, but now there's a back marker ahead. Is this another lifeline to be thrown as number 90 Will Burns, the reigning GT4 champion there? He's about to be negotiated by the Audi. They come out of dear lead, down towards Old Hall Corner once more. I don't think Jules Gounon is close enough to dive bomb the Audi, but we're into the last 9 minutes and they are still absolutely together. 0.3 of a second between them.
Yeah, they've got essentially the GT3 leaders ahead of them. Burns is 5th, then they've got Turner, Cowley, Miller, Wiley, Fielding. They're all pretty well spaced out, so you can see them there in the distance. They'll catch them one at a time, but catch one of them at the wrong moment, and that could be the defining moment in this race. 8 minutes and 20 seconds left to go, and Adam Carroll holding on to the advantage. This could be the chance, though. They catch Darren Turner into Shell. To the inside goes Carroll, to the outside looks Gounon. He's trying, he's almost there. Couldn't quite get the overlap. You could see the thinking there, but that was an optimistic move, it must be said, to attempt. What it has done is it's got him as close as you like to the Audi heading over Hilltop.
Le Mans class winner Darren Turner gets out of the way. That car being lapped again because, of course, it had to serve its stop-go penalty, so it was out of sequence. Every lap, Jules Gounon has that look, doesn't he, on the inside into Hislop's, more in hope than in anticipation. And lap after lap, nothing comes of it. More traffic. 61, the Academy Motorsport Matt Cowley-driven Mustang is up the road, and to the outside line goes Adam Carroll. Zaps around the outside of the Mustang. Jules Gounon follows suit as well, up towards Druids now. Tricky, double apex right, through which they turn, absolutely as one. Another back marker up the road.
Yeah, and this is going to force Carroll to the inside at Lodge. That might hurt him on the exit. No, he clears the number 23 car, which runs third in GT4 at the hands of Josh Miller at the moment. Yes, Josh Miller, third place for R Racing on, I believe, their British GT debut as well. And that car running strongly. The Aston Martin's coming to the fore in GT4 in the second half of the race. Gounon wide. They're going to catch the Ross Wiley Porsche at Cascades. How does this back marker affect things? Through goes Carroll, through goes Gounon, and just like that, they dispatch of Wiley, who still runs second in GT4.
Very quick mention of things happening further down in 7th place, because that is where you have the Silver Am leading Bentley of Assetto Motorsport. It's new to the team. It's a borrowed car. They had the crash in testing on Friday. Drivers new to the car. I mean, it's new everywhere you look, and they are leading the class. I know they're a long way back, nearly 24.5 seconds relative to the leaders overall, but as far as the Silver Am leading class within a division is concerned, it's Assetto Motorsport. Great job being done by all involved in the Bentley. As now we ride on board with Gounon, we go down towards Hislop through the traffic, put a lap on the 42 Audi. They could not be closer, heading down towards Hislop's, but 6 minutes on the clock, and there Adam Carroll goes slightly wide. Is this Jules Gounon's chance to duck up underneath, coming out of Knickerbrook corner? No, everywhere he wants to be, Adam Carroll is already there.
Really clever driving that from Carroll. He parked the car on the apex at Knickerbrook corner. He knew that Gounon couldn't accelerate until he did, and that just robbed Gounon of that bit of momentum that he had coming off the corner. Speaking of momentum, though, he's got some out of Druids. He's closer than ever into Lodge corner. He looks to the inside again, but Carroll, the Audi, is good on the brakes, isn't it? And Gounon, as brave and committed as he can be into Lodge corner, just can't quite get to the inside of him.
Right, if Jules Gounon has ever watched touring car racing, now is the time to try a touring car tactic, because he's running out of time. The clock is against him. 5.5 minutes to go. That's the mood in the camp at Balve Motorsport. Warren Hughes, who has won many a race around here himself, looks on, and he sees the gap as 0.279 of a second. And Jules Gounon is working as hard as he possibly can in the Ram Racing Mercedes to try to get himself into the lead. Ian Loggy looking a little bit more concerned now, because again he can see the clock ticking on down. Island Bend up towards Shell. Everything that Jules Gounon has thrown at that Audi thus far, Adam Carroll has had an answer to.
For now, but the last 5 minutes are going to feel like the longest 5 minutes for Adam Carroll here. He has withstood this pressure incredibly well. It was about 10 minutes ago that we said Gounon's caught him. He's nearly a second a lap faster. He'll be able to get through, no trouble at all. Well, actually, he's had quite a bit of trouble getting past the Audi, and the Balfe Motorsport car that started on pole faded to 6th on the opening lap after that turn 1 contact between Richard Neary and Sean Balfe. Sean did a really good job, actually, to close back on the leaders. They had their problems over the pit stops, and you could say they inherited the race lead, but actually both Balfe and Carroll have done a good job to get the car in this position, and Carroll doing a superb job to keep it there.
Yeah, I mean, it was really the first couple of laps when the tyres didn't seem to be switching on and the car looked as nervous as a piddling puppy that really did for them. But yeah, you're right, with good pace, with the tyres working, with penalties for others, they've been able to rebuild their race. Now, is it going to be the fairy tale recovery for a win? Jules Gounon has another idea about this over the line. Right, 4 minutes to go. A flying lap at the moment is around the 95-second mark. Do the maths. But the gap's coming down and down once more. 3/10 heading now through Old Hall Corner. But Jules Gounon, if anything now, looks as though he's dropped back a length. And what can he do? He's tried most things, but Adam Carroll has the answer.
Whilst this goes on, by the way, there's an almighty 4-way scrap for the 3rd step of the podium. Jamie Stanley and Phil Keane have been caught now by Lewis Williamson and Ewan Hankey, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th all together. And then speaking of big groups of cars, that was 4, this is 5 now. This is the fight for 9th place, and it is Sandy Mitchell just ahead of Lewis Proctor, just ahead of Sam Neary, with Jamie Caroline and James Dorling for company.
Yeah, Sam Neary running, as you say, in that battle pack, 11th over the line. Not too bad, considering 2 penalties have been thrown at that car. And Sandy Mitchell still struggling under the BOP and the new tyre, all adding up to really seem to contrive against the Lamborghini here. But he is doing his level best. He needs to keep Proctor at bay, and that's the red line Lamborghini off the road again. This time James Dorling at the wheel, and bang, into the Armco it goes. It's done the Armco no good whatsoever. It's done the back of the Lambo no good whatsoever. But actually, James Dorling tries to drag it to the end, which is only about 2 laps away.
And that was again because they caught some GT4 cars at Old Hall and they scattered either way. Cars 56 and 8 post-race drive-through penalties to be served. So 8 is the Neary car. Yes, 3rd penalty of the race, and 56 is the Tomlinson-driven car in GT4. Right, back to the leaders, 2.5 minutes to go. 2 laps remain. Gounon as close as ever he has been, and actually maybe a bit closer over D'Elite than he's been for some time, a car length or so in it. But that Audi is not lacking for horsepower, is it? Adam Carroll just stretches the margin into Old Hall, and Gounon, again, frustratedly, has to sit in 2nd place.
Tell you what, this is a very, very good drive for Adam to hit the phones on Tuesday morning and say, what about me for GT World Challenge Europe, anybody? Look what I can do in an Audi R8. You've all been going on about this Gounon bloke in a Merc. Look at me. This is an outstanding drive and a brilliant defence. There's going to be one more lap at the end of this, and Jules Gounon has done all the hard yards. He's driven brilliantly to get through the field and catch the Audi, and then he is stuck because Adam Carroll is not putting a wheel wrong.
Yeah, the number 6 car started 10th. The car ahead of it started first and is leading with a lap and a half to go. If you just read the headlines, then you'd be forgiven for thinking it had been a fairly boring race, this. But anything but. This has been British GT at its finest. What a way to start the 30th season of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, and it ain't over yet. Lap and a half to go. Gounon's not going to give up on this until they've crossed the start-finish line for the last time and seen the checkered flag. Every corner is now an overtaking opportunity, weaving in the brakes. There's traffic ahead, and David, not just GT4, but a GT3 car as well. Thankfully, that car gets out of the way. That could have been tricky.
Could indeed. Now, what does Jules Gounon do here? He can't do the whole season. Ian Logie can. They need to bank points. He wants to win the race and get as many points for Ian as he can. Nose to tail as they get slightly delayed by the team. Britt McLaren and Gounon to the outside line. Is he going to be able to go all the way around the outside at Lodge Corner? He's going to give it a full send, that's for sure. They are absolutely dead level as they come out of the corner. The Mercedes with the inside for D'Elite. The Audi's going to have the inside line for Old Hall as they start the last lap of the race. Gounon is ahead, but I don't think he can get the job done in time for the corner. He can't. Through on the inside goes Carroll. Gounon tried everything. Now, can he get alongside again? The answer is no. What an effort, though.
How did Carroll hold on to the lead? The Mercedes was actually a nose ahead at the line, but on the wrong side. Yeah. And then he got a good exit out of Old Hall as well, Carroll, so he wasn't vulnerable. Down into Cascades. Now, was that the final opportunity for Jules Gounon to do this? He's got less than a lap to go, and I don't think there's any more traffic on the horizon either, so clear track to play with here, and Carroll's still in front.
But if he can do it, again, Jules Gounon could win it because he was ahead as they crossed the line.
True.
So technically, he has had the lead, albeit by 56 thousandths. What a brilliant advert for GT racing and for the championship and for pro drivers at the top of their game. So Jules, you've done it once. I know that was helped a little bit by traffic, but can he do it again? Last lap.
Yeah, down towards Hislop's then for the final time, running out of opportunities. There is no traffic ahead, but Gounod's still good on the brakes, closes in through Hislop's. We know this slightly wider line that Carroll takes can sometimes look like Gounod's got the run on him. That's not the case though, riding on board with the Ram Racing car. I mean, second place would still be a good result for the championship for the Ram Racing team, but Jules is not thinking about that now. He's not in for the full season. He can't win the championship this year. He just wants race wins. I don't think it's quite going to happen though. A superb recovery drive and an incredible defensive drive from Adam Carroll is going to yield a pole position to race victory performance for Balfe Motorsport. What a drive, what a race. Adam Carroll crosses the line and wins round number 1 of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. The Balfe Motorsport squad are absolutely ecstatic with that. And I tell you what, round of applause to him, round of applause to both of them. That was one of the best head-to-head fights I've seen around here for a long, long time.
And atypically for Oulton Park, there's not that many damaged cars, thankfully. 42 is still heading for a GT4 win. This is Senan Fielding. Out on his own, it was much, much closer in the GT3 battle, but as far as GT4 is concerned, by some margin, it's going to be Senan Fielding and Richard Williams. It's going to be a double for Audi, GT4 and GT3 wins for the R8s.
As far as I can tell, Audi have never won at Oulton Park in the British GT Championship. They've won twice today, though. Through goes the Stellar Motorsport Audi, and a victory in GT4 for them. Again, from pole position, makes it sound a lot more simple than it actually was after that penalty. Senan Fielding and Richard Williams victorious. Second will go to R Racing on their debut in the championship, with the number 51 Voluga Racing Porsche in third.
Well, there is the winning car. Audis, oddly, in this championship have never been that fashionable. WRT even came in many years ago and did a few races, but Audi R8 wins, I don't think we've ever had one. So to have an Audi win in both classes in the opening round is something very special. And what a drive by Adam Carroll. He did not put a wheel wrong, did he? Withstood all of that pressure. The winning margin, 0.455 of a second. And those last 15 minutes with two absolute masters of their art going at it toe-to-toe, magnificent.
I will never forget looking out of the window as they started that last lap, and they were side by side over Deer Lead. That is an incredible sight, and you know, we laboured the point during that stint. They are both pro drivers, two of the best drivers on the grid, I think, in cars that are clearly working well, and on a track that is not known for producing all of this side-by-side racing with overtaking left, right and centre, but that's what we got there. And okay, the lead didn't change in the final half of the race. Well, it did technically, starting the final lap with Gounod a nose ahead, but that does not mean we can take away from the defensive job that Adam Carroll did there. That was superb stuff. Yep. Incidentally, Jamie Stanley did hold on to third place with Phil Keane fourth and Williamson fifth, Ewan Hankey sixth. They stayed in the same order, but those four were covered by about a second and a half at the flag as well. Remarkable.
What a race, and the narrowest of margins. And what was also pleasing, not only was it a great race, and you've touched on this as well, but we didn't have too much contact. Yeah, okay, there were a few penalties, but we haven't ended up with lots of battered cars. And what we've ended up with is a really good advert for the British GT Championship and driving standards. So the top three cars from the two classes being parked on the line, and the cars not required for the podium are heading into Parc Fermé. And look, there Jules Gounod walks over to Adam Carroll to say, well done, and just an outstanding fight between those two. And you kind of get the feeling that, disappointed as Jules Gounod will be, he wouldn't mind necessarily losing that kind of battle, because that was, you know, an example of two racers just going for the top of the game.
Yeah, and these pro drivers, we sometimes just get a bit hung up on their results and race wins and points and things. They're racing drivers because they enjoy racing, and that was one of the best races we've had for an awfully long time. So yeah, I'm sure both Gounod and Carroll will have enjoyed that. And of course, from 10th on the grid as well. I'm sure if you'd have told Jules and Ian at the start of that race that they were going to finish second, they'd have been very pleased with that. There is Adam Carroll, who looks a little hot and sweaty. I think we'll forgive him for that. It's a warm afternoon, and he's put in a really brilliant morning's work. They've got to do this all over again now this afternoon. Well, Adam Carroll then, down there with Bryn Lucas. Let's hear from our race winner.
Well, how about that? That was a race that had everything, and you were pushed the whole way from Jules behind.
Absolutely. He was quicker, so You know, I knew once he got to me, he just still had to pass me. But you know, such an intense track here, it does not take much to, you know, to make a mistake, or especially when the GT4s are coming your way. That was absolutely flat out. So.
You had a moment on the penultimate lap, but as you came over the line, he was just ahead of you. So had he had done that again on the last lap, he would have won. But you managed to, you know, keep your wits about you.
Yeah, it was with a GT4 down here, so you maybe didn't see that bit, and that's why he was able to get the run. But you know, without the GT4 car there, he wouldn't have been able to, you know, just been where he was. But yeah, it was super close. I have to watch that one back, but he's sweating, so that's okay.
It was a great drive. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Right then, we're just getting our breath back up here after what was a phenomenal race.
If you want to know what a sponge looks like, it was Adam Carroll, because he soaked up all of that pressure. Yeah, Sean Balfe, when he's allowed near the car, will be delighted with that. I mean, we saw the resignation on his face, but in the end, a winning margin of 0.4 of a second. And Jules Gounon, likewise, threw everything at that in order to try to take that win. Right, another star of the race, undoubtedly, Jules Gounon. Oulton Park debut, he's with Bryn.
It wasn't bad, was it, for a debut? I spoke to you just before you got in the car, and you said it's called full send, and that is what you delivered.
Yeah, it was a great race. I think we had a bit of damage on the car, so I was struggling with oversteer, understeer, but you know, I've been talking with Jan into the winter, and I told him, look, I'm going to give 110% for you. We started P10. Finishing P2 was very close to the win, so I'm a bit pissed, but it was a great fight with Carol, with Adam. I was watching him when I was a kid. I was not even racing at 15, and I remember his name from the top category, so I'm happy. It's very nice to see so many fans around the track, and I hope we deliver a good show for them.
Well, you certainly did. Now, in the next race, you start on pole position, so you don't have to pass anyone. What's the game plan?
The game is to give the biggest gap as possible to Yen, and then see where we end up.
Well done.
Thank you, man.
Good point that Bryn makes there. Pole position for that Ram Racing car in race number 2. I was sort of thinking to myself that this first race might be the throwaway race for them, and then they'll bank the points in race 2. But of course, now they're going to start at the front. They've got that success penalty, but the pace that Gounon's got, you wouldn't bet against him starting on pole, running away and building a 10-second cushion by the pit stops. It wasn't a 10-second cushion at the end of race 1, though, that Adam Carroll enjoyed. Just under half a second, his winning margin for the Balfe Motorsport Audi over the Ram Racing Mercedes. Carroll and Balfe win, with Gounon and Loggy second. Third place, what a debut in the GT3 category for Fox Motorsport. Jamie Stanley and Nick Halstead. Kind of a forgotten performance that in amongst everything else that was happening, but a brilliant drive from them. Igo and Keane for WPI before the head of the Williamson and Cottingham Mercedes, with a penalty finishing 5th. The 76 McLaren was 6th ahead of that brilliant Silver Am victory for the Sansom and Tregurtha Assetto Motorsport Bentley. Then it was Morgan Tilbrook and Marcus Clutton, one of many teams that had a pit stop penalty. They come home 8th ahead of the Barwell Lamborghini of Ballon and Mitchell. And John Ferguson and Jamie Caroline, that car was pointing the wrong way halfway through the race at Lodge Corner, and they salvage a top 10. Greystone GT's McLaren was 11th ahead of the Sky Tempesta racing car, which we thought for a time could be a contender for a race win. Team ABBA Racing, likewise, they end up 13th ahead of the Redline Racing Lamborghini that had that shunt late on, and the Paddock Motorsport McLaren that had issues in the middle of the race and finished 2 laps down. Then in GT4, it's another Audi victory for Stella Motorsport. Richard Williams and Senan Fielding getting the victory from Jamie Day and Josh Miller. Second place for R Racing, and third place for Luger Racing's Porsche, Benji Hetherington and Ross Wiley. The Academy Mustang of Signoretti and Cowley was 4th ahead of Matt Topham, and Darren Turner coulda, shoulda, would have been the race winners had it not been for their pit stop penalties. So they were the top 5 in GT4. Of course, Topham and Turner taking the Pro-Am victory. Right, I need to catch my breath, I think, here. So why don't we head down there and hear from Bryn Lucas, who's found a few more very hot, sweaty, but I'd imagine pretty excited racing drivers.
Yeah, I think hot and sweaty kind of sums it up, really. Not just Senan for yourself, Richard. I mean, talk us through that start for us.
It wasn't perfect, I'll be honest. I actually pulled a gear way too early, so I completely messed the start up. And then we knew we kind of had some really good pace in the car from testing, obviously from qualifying as well. So it was just about being patient. And I needed to chat with whoever was in the Porsche at the beginning. So he was very polite actually when I overtook him. So thanks to whoever it was. But yeah, I mean, you know, from the whole kind of weekend's perspective so far, brilliant start. Can't complain. Car feels brilliant. Team are doing a great job, as is him.
Look, not a great start for you, but it also wasn't a great start in the other Audi of Sean Balfe. For yourself, though, when you got in the car, Sen, and before the race, we spoke to you, and you were a bit kind of, you know, giving us a lot of excuses, but you didn't need them.
Just in case. Thing is, I think there's so many things going on in British GT race with the GT3s coming through on lapped cars. You never can say, oh, we're going to win this race. It's obviously that's the aim, and we knew we had the car underneath us. Like I say, Stella Motorsports done a good job. I knew I wouldn't put it in another hands. Like Richard's done a mega job all weekend, so he drove mega. So I was kind of hoping he would do the job, and then I could have a nice, easy race. But yeah, no, it's been faultless. I think it's a good way to start the championship, and we've just got to keep going on from where we are.
Look, it was a decent race for us to watch from the outside. The season opener, wow, what a start. We want more of those. I'm sure we'll get them. Go and get your trophies. Well done.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
A touring car race to send you a message to say that was a brilliant race. You know it was. So Tom Ingram was watching that and was well impressed. But fantastic battle between the two going for those last 15 minutes of the race.
Right then, let's remind ourselves, shall we, of all of the action from a breathless season opener. The opening round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship was a thriller, simple as that. It all started into turn one when slight contact between the Team ABBA Mercedes and the Balfe Audi delayed the Audi and allowed Richard Neary through into the race lead. It was, apart from that though, a clean start. Alex Maliakin bounced over the grass in the Red Line Racing Lamborghini, got away with it. Down at Cascades, Neary got the lead. Graham Davidson went second, and Balfe was struggling in the early stages, eventually settling into 6th place just behind an all-Mercedes battle ahead of him. In GT4, again, not a great start for the Audi, which initially lost the lead for Stella Motorsport, whilst there was contact that saw John Ferguson's Mercedes in the beach at Lodge. GT4 battling was every bit as close and as frenetic as it was in GT3, which saw in the first half of the race a three-way fight for the lead, until this happened. Graham Davidson off at high speed after contact with Richard Neary whilst fighting for the lead at Clay Hill. That happened just before the pit lane window opened. It was a very busy pit lane, and Jules Gounon, delayed slightly leaving in the pit lane, had a lot of work to do to get into contention. The Red Line Lamborghini was in the wars there with contact from the Academy Motorsport Ford Mustang, whilst out on track the Sky Tempesta racing car was making friends with the Barwell Lamborghini. It got very touchy-feely there as Gounon got up the inside of Jamie Stanley and got ahead of the McLaren into what became 2nd place after a number of penalties for leading contenders in GT3. Ram Racing were thrilled with that. The penalties, meanwhile, were not just confined to GT3. Darren Turner had the lead in GT4, but a short pit stop meant he had to serve a stop-go penalty. Towards the end of the race, Gounon was charging after Adam Carroll, took 5 seconds out of him to catch him with 15 minutes to go, but could not find a way through. Behind them, it all got a bit too much in the end for the Red Line Lamborghini, which finally ended its race in the Cascades barrier. As we went into the final stages of the race, the Jamie Caroline-driven Mercedes was in the wars as well, but this was the picture at the front of the field starting the last lap. At the end of the last lap, though, the Balfe Audi was back ahead. Adam Carroll and Sean Balfe take the victory, while Stella Motorsport convert pole in GT4 into a race win as well. Audi's on top at Oulton Park. So, did you get all that?
That was most of it crammed into the highlights. Fantastic stuff. And there is more to look forward to at 4:10 this afternoon when we get to race 2. There's a lot to catch up on before then. There's also a lot to catch up on right now because Bryn is busy down in the pit lane and in Parc Fermé, rounding up drivers for us. Bryn.
I have only one, two.
Yeah, I've got the two guys from Beluga Racing. Not a bad debut for you two, was it, Benji? A decent start?
No, really good, yeah. I think we set it up well in qualifying on Saturday. And then, yeah, I had a bit of a game plan just to hold it tight around the outside, or hold it loose around the outsides, and hopefully get the Audi on the way into Cascade, which worked out quite well. Started to pull a bit of a gap, but yeah, we were just burning through rear tyres, trying to pull away from the Audi, so I let him through and then just settled into a nice race, really, and then a good pit stop, and yeah, left Ross to cling on at the end there.
Tyres have been a big theme of this weekend. What's it been like, Ross, for yourself?
It was hard work. Yeah, I think he had the enjoyment of using them at the start, but yeah, it was hard work at the end there. But I really enjoyed it. It was hard work keeping those boys behind, but end of the day we're here, we're on the podium, and can't thank the guys at Beluga enough for giving me a sound car.
It's not a bad start. Well done.
Thank you.
Not a bad start at all. I think Beluga will be very, very pleased with that. They have been racing that Porsche in GTs for a little while, but not necessarily in British GT. And a fantastic effort from them to get themselves into that second place, onto the GT4 podium. And we should very shortly be able to check in with those podium presentations. Packed house here today, David, at Oulton Park. I think the fans trackside will have enjoyed that race, won't they?
One would hope so, yes, and of course with smartphones and live timing available, there's no excuse not to, is there? So the drivers then make their way onto the podium for the GT3 overall podium, first of all, where Jamie Stanley on the left, as you look, the shorter of the two, stands with Nick Halstead. And very, very pleased they will be. Debut podium in GT3, that is some result. Debut visit to Oulton Park, second place for Jules Gounon in the green overalls with Ian Loggy. Good start to Ian for the championship, but he doesn't want to be second at the end of it. He wants to be the champion this year. And the top step is going to go to Adam Carroll, who still looks a bit hot and bothered, and Sean Balfe. It's a shame we can't have two winners of that, but brilliant battle and a great drive by Adam Carroll to hang on to victory for Balfe Motorsport, for him and for Sean Balfe. And the trophies then are being presented. Nick Burrows, the Intelligent Money Private Clients Managing Director, is the man that hands them over. And fantastic trophies as well, with the shape being the Oulton Park full circuit map. Top step, Adam Carroll and Sean Balfe. Jules Gounon and Ian Loggy take second. Jamie Stanley and Nick Halstead are third.
Yeah, really impressive performances from all three. I really am very impressed with the Fox Motorsport drive there to third position. Yes, they were helped by some others having penalties, but they were in the hunt all race long. Halstead was on pace in the opening stint of the race, and Jamie Stanley, a good defensive drive for him as well, with the second half to wrap up that third place finish. So the champagne sprays for our GT3 overall podium finishers. And how many more times will we see these particular drivers on the podium this season? We could even see some of them returning to the podium later on today. Don't forget, we've got another race for the British GT Championship later on today, due to start at 4:10 this afternoon. So if you enjoyed that first race, we do it all over again later on, but with the pros starting, pit stop success penalties to take into account as well. It could be a very different picture, so make sure you join us this afternoon. The race due to start at 4:10, but make sure you're in front of your TV screens a little bit earlier than that for all of the pre-race build-up. There's an awful lot to dissect after race one and talk about in the lead-up to race two later on.
Well, a great advert for the championship, but GT4, which was also having plenty of fierce fight, was going down to the wire. These are the remaining GT3 podiums, because there are classes within the division. And so next onto the podium come the Silver Ams. And the winning combination in Silver Am, as we were saying there, Will Tregurtha and Mark Sansom. Mark stepping up from GT4 to GT3, so same team but a new car and a new co-driver, and what a fairy tale result, because at the end of Friday they had a Bentley in bits. They've borrowed a different one, and there they are, class winners. Outstanding. Yeah, it's the Paddock Motorsport car that actually qualified on pole here at the end of last year, towards the end of last year. Didn't manage to get the win on that occasion, but a class win for that car. And Assetto Motorsport, yeah, Mark Sansom, exactly what he needed, I think, because he's a confidence driver. Lots of drivers will struggle for confidence after a shunt, especially so early on in his GT3 career. First race weekend in that GT3 Bentley, and he went off at Island Bend, not a nice place to go off the road either. And so to bounce back and get the class victory, again, something that they would have bitten your arm off for, I think, at the start of the weekend, that is going to do his confidence the world of good. Yeah, the Bentley's still owned by Bentley Motorsport, the sort of lease to the teams. And although Assetto, with a bit of guidance, could have got the car repaired because they were new to it, Bentley Motorsport decided, well, let's try and make life a bit easier for you. We can loan you another car so you can concentrate on running it rather than have to spend all Friday night and most of Saturday morning rebuilding it. So, yeah, very generous way of looking at it, and very successful too. So, the next podiums are GT4, and third, now second, and in a moment the winners will step forward at the end of what, again, was a mighty battle. And we've talked about how the Audis suddenly have come good, both in terms of GT3 and now GT4 terms. Richard Williams and Senan Fielding, the class winners, as they make their way to the top step.
Yeah, the GT4 race was arguably even more topsy-turvy than the GT3 one. We just couldn't drag our eyes off the GT3 battle. But, I mean, the Stella Motorsport car, to bounce back from a stop-go penalty to get this victory, having started on pole, lost the lead, got it back, lost it through the pit stops, got it back again there at the end of the race. A real yo-yo race for both Richard and Senan, and a well-deserved victory. And I do think, as I touched upon, I think, earlier on in the day, I do think that that car is going to be up there contending for GT4 Championship honours come the end of the year. They couldn't last year for various reasons, lots of bad luck mainly through the middle part of the season. Off to a strong start this time.
Can we wave the flag a bit for the two on the left-hand side, just going out of shot now, for the R Racing Aston Martin, because Josh Miller is in his first season outside Ginetta Junior Racing, and Jamie Day is in his first season of racing anything that's not a single-seater in the United Arab Emirates. So both, again, making a mighty step up to racing at this level. In the case of Jamie Day, making a mighty step up to a new circuit, and they get second, first time out. That's another hugely impressive performance.
It is, and two such young drivers as well, and relatively inexperienced, as you said. If they can do that now, how much better might they be with another couple of race weekends in the championship under their belt? So, and R Racing as well, great to have them in the championship, bringing along another one of those GT4 Aston Martins, as McLarens and Mercedes have become the trendy car to have. The Aston Martin, less so it seems, so nice to have a couple of them represented in the GT4 category, and both of them quick. Could have arguably had two Astons on the podium in GT4 had it not been for that penalty for the number 27 Newbridge car. Right, final podium then, we've got the GT4 Pro-Am category, with two cars entered into the Pro-Am category, but a bit of a story in itself here. The Team Brit entry, the first ever all-disabled driver lineup. Aaron Morgan, a paraplegic after a nasty motocross accident 15 or so years ago, and Bobby Trundley, who was diagnosed as severely autistic and is forming part of this actually, I think, very promising Team Brit lineup once they get to grips with a car. I mean, they've both raced extensively at club level, but this is quite the step up. And to be up there on a podium with Matt Topham and Darren Turner has got to be a bit of a pinch yourself moment.
That's right. Pro-Am in GT4, Darren Turner, Matt Topham carrying on the good work of last year. And although perhaps you could argue the class win was never in doubt, the GT4 position could have been even better, but for being just fractionally short on the pit stop. And champagne is about to be sprayed, but another day, another trophy for Darren Turner, who has become very much a stalwart for Aston Martin as a factory driver, now being loaned out to the private teams, and great job done last year, and a very impressive start to this season as well. Well, if that doesn't whet your appetite for race 2 at 10 past 4, I don't know what does. Both our phones are pinging away like mad up here with lots of people sending messages saying, wow, what a race that was. And it really was, and I keep going on about it because we talk about Oulton Park often being high on damage, difficult to overtake. It shows you how driving standards have been improved over the last season or two, but that was just a wonderful advert for GT3 racing and for the championship. And in GT3, our silver AM winners, Will Tregurtha and Mark Sampson, celebrating a real change in fortunes, and they're with Bryn.
So, gents, it's been a bit of a tricky weekend for you, really. Mark, you were saying you've moved a long way since Friday, but that was brilliant, wasn't it? A win in Silver Am and your debut in GT3.
Yeah, super important just to get a bit of, frankly, confidence back. Friday was a big shunt. The car was total, so we had to get a spare car here. So we've been on the back foot all weekend, really. Very little seat time. And yeah, hadn't really had much chance to sort of, in fact, no chance to run on low fuel and slicks in quali. So I think we started maybe slightly out of position. But it was just reassuring for me to find I had the pace of the guys ahead. Race pace was absolutely fine, pretty comfortable. And the start opened up quite nicely, got a few places, and yeah, that set Will up for barnstorming second stint.
And very quickly, Will, this is your kind of debut in GT3, but your return to British GT.
Yeah, loving it. Honestly, I love it. It's just what an experience to be back in GT3 cars, especially back in the UK, and the crowd here is awesome. So I just love Oulton, and Bentley was storming through.
Well done, not a bad start.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there we go then, Assetto Motorsport, one of many feel-good stories after that opening round of the championship, which of course leaves us with a championship table now. Only one race in the book, so it's the same as the race result. Balfe Motorsport leading the way in GT3 from Ram Racing's Loggy and Goonon, Fox Motorsport, Stanley and Halstead, with Igo and Keane for WPI 4th and Cottingham and Williamson for the 2Cs Motorsport effort 5th in the championship. That could all get turned on its head though after the second 60-minute race later on today, which will also see the inclusion of the success penalties. Top 3 finishes in both classes from that one, spending longer in the pit lane in race 2. It's one not to be missed, I suspect. If race 1 is anything to go by, the race gets underway at 10 past 4. We'll be going on air just before 4 o'clock though with all of the pre-race build-up. So make sure you join us then. Been a thrilling start to the season here at Oulton Park. Join us again later for Chapter 2 of what is set to be a fantastic championship campaign.